Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. And I remember seeing a survey that indicated 71% of working moms wish they could be home. In other words, if they had a choice, they would want to spend more time at home, or they would want to focus all of their energies in their home. So this is something, it may be politically incorrect to say it, but I think it resonates with the heartbeat of most women. I think most women that are listening to this conversation right now, and they're working, if I had a choice, I would prefer to be home. Now, some are going to prefer to work, and that's fine. That's a decision that every couple, every family has to make for itself. I'm not dictating to anybody. That's a decision that every couple and every family has to make for itself, and they don't answer to me for those decisions. They answer to God, and so they just need to follow his lead and do what they think is best and right for their families. But I think most women, the instinct that God has built into them is to build something for their husbands and for their families, to build a home for them. That's where they want the expression of their personality to be, is the way that they prepare that home and create an environment in that home that's appealing to her family. That's what she wants. That's where her fulfillment, that's where her creativity and innovation and heart and love are to find expression. It's interesting, back to this Pew Research Center, just before we go to the phones, this Washington Post says Americans are decidedly ambivalent about mothers who work outside the home. 3/4 of those surveyed say these mothers make raising children harder. So they recognize, look, everybody's only got so much physical and psychic energy to go around, emotional energy, mental energy. If you're consuming mental and physical, psychic energy, if you want to use that term, 8 hours a day, that energy is not available to go into your family. And 75% of the American people say, that's a real challenge for moms. Let's see, half of Americans worry that working moms are bad for marriages. They understand, they recognize it puts a strain on the marriage relationship. Half of those surveyed felt it was better if mothers stayed home with young children. So 50% of Americans are completely politically incorrect. And I wonder if the other half were just answering, it's better if they work, just because they think that's what they're supposed to say, and they don't want the pollster to think there's some kind of a sexist Neanderthal Cro-Magnon. So the fact that half were willing to admit that they thought it would be better for moms to stay home with young children is pretty significant. Well, let's go to the phones. Let's start with Mike in Moorhead, Kentucky. Mike, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Well, you were talking about the abortion and putting it in perspective with how many people were lynched by the KKK. And I, like you, I don't want to defend the KKK, but I think it became something completely different from what it was originally started out to be, as a way to rectify some of the problems that were happening in post-Civil War, where some people couldn't get justice in the court system. But all that aside, our native fertility until 1970, I'm constantly reading obituaries for people that were one of 9 children, survived or preceded in death by 4 brothers and 5 sisters. And around 1970, our native fertility dropped off. It plummeted. And the likes of Maria Shriver and some of these people that want to amend the Constitution, there's a reason behind it. In the next generation, there's going to be more foreign-born Americans that weren't born in this country than native-born Americans. So they want a president that potentially could be foreign-born, because there's going to be a majority of voters that are going to be foreign-born in the next few years. And it's because we're not having native people that are born here are not having 2 children, 1.8 children or 2.2 children. There's not a replacement rate. And our legal immigration is 4 times what the replacement rate would be. There's maybe 250,000 people that leave the country every year for whatever reason, go back to their home country or whatever. We can't help world poverty by accepting 1 million people legally in this country every year. We cannot tolerate all these illegals either, because our systems are going to be overwhelmed. And, on top of the fact that they're aborting all these babies, the people that do want to have children, their fertility rates are going down, and we're going to be overwhelmed in less than a generation, probably by 2040, if not sooner.
Yeah, and I appreciate the call, Mike. And what Mike is is saying about demographics is exactly right. Everybody in America will be a minority by the middle of this century and maybe sooner. And I think we do need to understand that there is a real problem with the fertility rate in America. Mike is exactly right. This is the problem that Europe has right now. They're dealing now with the full fruit. They've had very low fertility rates. I mean, in some countries in Europe, like in Italy and Spain, places like that, the fertility rate is down like 1.25, 1.3. And replacement rate is 2.1. In other words, just for your population to remain stable, you have to have a fertility rate of 2.1 children per woman. And they're down to 1.3, so they're losing people. Native-born population is shrinking. I mean, it's actually getting smaller. Like Russia's losing 750,000. Their population is shrinking 750,000 people every year because abortions are so rampant there and the birth rate is so low. And so what Europe has done is the same thing that's happening right now in America. The way that Europe dealt with their problem of a diminishing population is unrestricted Islamic immigration. And now they've got a tiger by the tail. They don't know what to do. The French police, remember that French soldier that was stabbed in the neck? Well, they arrested a Muslim for that. He went out and bought 2 knives. I mean, an hour before he attacked the guy. They've got surveillance video of him buying the knife, surveillance video of him praying in the street. Then 8 minutes later, he's stabbing this French soldier in the neck who is going to survive, thank God. We have another story in France. 2 Muslims went into a barbershop today with a couple of machetes and started hacking people up while they're sitting in a barber shop, sitting in a barber chair, went in and hacked them up. And the French authorities admitted, look, the motivation for this guy that stabbed the French soldier was religious. Now, they're trying to be careful not to say which religion it was, but it's obvious. This guy prays to Allah. Allah tells him, I want you to go cut the head off of that French soldier because he's an infidel dog. And so he gets up and does it. Same thing that happened in the UK. So they've got this huge problem now of a growing Muslim population. And again, we're not saying all Muslims are like that. Most Muslims we don't have to worry about. I'm not saying most Muslims want to cut our heads off. Most Muslims don't. They just want to get along. But they're not the ones we have to worry about. And right now we have no way to tell the difference between the Muslims that we have to worry about and the Muslims that we don't. So that's the issue. And Europe's got this huge problem now with this Muslim immigration, and they really don't know what to do about that. They've got a situation where they allowed this unrestricted immigration because they needed workers because of a shrinking population base, and now they've got immigrants that are detracting and degrading their culture rather than adding to it. We've got we're heading the same direction as Mike pointed out. This is a piece by Terry Jeffrey on townhall.com today. According to the Congressional Budget Office, in 2012, 27% of the foreign-born population between the ages of 25 and 64 had not completed high school, compared with only 7% of the native-born population. So again, this unrestricted immigration, the people that are immigrating to the United States illegally between the ages of 25 and 64, as well as those migrating legally, only 27% of them 73% had, 27% had not completed high school, whereas only 7% of those that were born in America had not completed high school. So the education level is dropping by the year because of this virtually unrestricted immigration. And again, it's a matter of being selective. I'm getting a little bit off stream here, but if you look at immigrants from Asia, only 9% of Asian immigrants had less than a high school education, and only 5% of the people from Europe and Canada had less than a high school education. So, in other words, if we're going to have smart immigration policy, what we want to do is we want to allow people to immigrate to the United States who will raise the level of education, raise the level of educational attainment, and will be contributors to American culture and not consumers of welfare benefits. And that would be immigrants from Asia, immigrants from Europe, immigrants from Canada would fit that bill. Anyway, Mike, I appreciate the call. Let's go quickly to Jonelle in Ozark, Arkansas. Jonelle, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Well, you were talking about women who make more than their husbands and the kind of stress that puts on a marriage.
Yes,
I'm sure it's not true in every case, but it has certainly been true in my case. I'm in my second marriage, and my first husband died, and when he died, I had 5 children, and like 3 of them were small. So, and his Social Security wasn't very much, so I was in a position where I had to do something to ensure the future of my children and to be able to feed, clothe, and house them. So I went to school and became a nurse. And then, when I remarried several years later, I'd been nursing, and I make a good wage. I make a real good wage. And he is, my second husband was, he's a machinist, and he used to make good money back before the economy fell off.
Mm-hmm.
But now it seems to be an issue all the time. It comes up in every disagreement that we have about how I make more money than he does, and women get all the breaks, and, this, that, and the other. And I never wanted a career.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted a career.
Just a matter of
necessity. It was what I had to do.
Yeah. All right, Jonah. Well, listen, I appreciate you calling and appreciate your transparency with us, and God's best to you. That's a difficult circumstance. You're just trying to do the best thing you can for your children. We commend you for that, doing what you got to do. And I just pray that God will bless you, bless your marriage, and kind of work out some of these stresses and bring a real unity of spirit and harmony between you and your husband. And Janelle, I appreciate the call, and God bless you. Focal Point, AFR Talk. We'll be right back after the news. Stay with us.